thank you everyone for joining us for this webinar regarding the 2021 Employer Innovation Fund. What I just want to do a quick, once we get started, I'm going to go through very briefly some Future Ready Iowa, just general information. Whenever we're doing a Future Ready Iowa grant, I think it's important for us to do that little basic background in case you're new to Future Ready Iowa. I know many of you probably aren't, and you could probably do this yourself, which is awesome. But just know that I'll do a brief overview of Future Ready Iowa. Then we'll talk about some basics with the Employer Innovation Fund grant opportunity that's open right now. And we will do question and answer, and Molly is going to help us with that so that we can capture everybody's questions. Typically we do that at the end, and we will do it at the end. However, when we get to a couple pieces about administrative, I'm going to probably stop and pause there. So put your questions in the Q&A part or the chat so Molly can help us, because as I'll introduce in a moment, David has to leave at 12:30. So I kind of want to see if we can get some of those questions before he has to jump off. So again, now before I start, for sure, just an introduction, I'm Kathy Leggett. My position is Future Ready Iowa Policy Advisor. And I have Allison Hanrahan, and say hello, Allison. Allison is our grant guru. So thanks for joining us, Allison. David Steen is in charge of our legal department at IWD. And so thank you for joining us, David, and being our resource on so many of these questions.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yep, and Molly, who helps us set all of this up, our communications partners. So that's who we have here, and we'll just go ahead and I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get to it. So, all right, I think I've got that good. Are we good, Molly?
Yes, it's good.
Perfect. Okay, here we go. I think I've got to figure out how come I can't move this. I'm not, oh, there we go. Okay, perfect. Okay, good, thanks. Okay, so very quickly, I will talk fast just to go through these, everybody, just so you know, so be prepared for that. Future Ready Iowa is Iowa's goal to have 70% of Iowans in the workforce having education and training beyond high school by 2025. And this slide just shows that a lot of different groups got together to figure out how, what were the strategies for us to get to this goal. They worked for a long time, and that's what Future Ready Iowa is based on, is the strategies that they put forth for us to accomplish this goal. I always like to share why Future Ready Iowa. Here's one reason: because it's projected that 68% of our jobs in Iowa will require this type of training beyond high school by 2025. Also, we have a huge focus in Future Ready Iowa on closing the skills gap that we have. As you can see here, middle skills jobs, which are typically classified as jobs that require education and training up to an associate's degree. So it could be a certificate, a diploma, an apprenticeship card, any number of things, but up to an associate's degree. 53% of our jobs in Iowa, that's what they require. And when you look at this, you can see that we only have 34% of our population with that type of education and training. So we want to close that gap. We have a lot of great jobs. We just want to get opportunities available to people to get the education and training needed to fill those jobs. And then one other reason why Future Ready Iowa, we want to bring employers and education together, closer together, because employers tell us often when we survey them that they have applicants for their jobs, but the applicants do not have the qualifications that they need. And it could be those 21st century skill type of things: problem solving, critical thinking, communication. And a lot of times it's also those hard skills, whether it's welding or healthcare skills, those type of things. So we want to close those gaps. So in order to do that, to get to our 70% goal, we have been focused on trying to provide education and training to 139,000, at least above 139,000 Iowans to get to this goal. And one of our big populations is our adults who are already in the workforce, who do not have education and training beyond high school. Is how can we make opportunities available to them and address some of those barriers and get them the skills that they're going to need as technology and everything continues to change and adapt. Where we are right now is at 60.2%. And I think in a month, we'll have an update on this number. So we'll be able to see from 2020 where we are. And this shows a little bit about where we've been and what percentage makes that 60.2% up over on the other side of the screen. And there are great opportunities in all of these different categories. So we want to make those available. So now on to the grant. This is the Employer Innovation Fund 2021. The purpose of this grant is to expand opportunities for Iowans to earn credentials. So for credit, non-credit, industry accepted credentials, those type of things, leading to high demand jobs. We have a focus on high demand jobs, and I'll talk a little bit about that as well. And really what we're looking is to encourage employers, community leaders, community organizations, education entities to work together and support and collaborate on how these issues need to be addressed in your area. The training that's needed and the barriers that are faced are not necessarily the same in each area of the state. So collaborative efforts is really what we're looking for with the Employer Innovation Grant. I want to spend a little time on the fact that this is a matching grant, and it does get a little, I'm going to do my best to explain it. It gets a little confusing. So certainly ask questions, but it is a matching grant, and this grant, these state funds can match private and employer dollars for the projects that you're working on. The funding cannot match state and federal dollars. So we're looking for private dollars and in dollars that employers put up to match. As I said here in the bullet point, this is not a reimbursement grant. It gets confused because we do reimbursement grants. So this is not you spent this money and now we're reimbursing you and end of game. It's a matching grant, and that's different. And so the way I try to explain it is half of the project expense is covered. We're looking for covered by the private dollars and half covered by the grant. So for example, I just want to throw out a quick example. If you say we have a project and we're going to propose that we're going to upskill 10 of our employees because they don't have education and training beyond high school, and if we can get them this certification, they'll be able to stay with us in these high demand jobs, and that's going to cost us. And this is a very non-specific example, but that's going to cost us $20,000. So as an employer, we're going to put up $10,000 that we have, and we're asking the state to match that $10,000 to give us, so we have a total for 20 to train these 20 employees or whatever. So I'm just trying to offer that as that's what the match is. It's not a reimbursement, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Yeah.
If I could just throw in, because I know we've had a couple questions recently on this point, those private dollars need to exist before the matching part that's provided by the Employer Innovation Fund. You need to have those dollars available and have them committed. We can't have it after the fact. The grant doesn't come in and then dollars can come in later. Those need to exist and be on paper committed to the project before you qualify for the matching grant from the Employer Innovation Fund.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so how much money is available for this grant cycle? Right now, there is 1.2 million approximately available between the Employer Innovation Fund, and some of you may be aware that we have another fund that's open right now too, and that's the Child Care Challenge Fund. So it's 1.2 million between the two of those. I do not have I don't have an amount that it's going to be, 600,000 for Employer Innovation, 600,000 for Child Care Challenge. I just know that it's 1.2 million between the two of those. The deadlines are the same day, so we'll be able to look at how many applicants we have and how much money people are asking for. But that is what is available approximately right now. For the Employer Innovation Fund, what is your maximum request for match? It's $50,000. Minimum is $1,000. If you're going to do a grant, we want you to be asking for at least $1,000 in a match. The most you can ask for is up to $50,000. And then when and how are funds made available? So going back to kind of the point that David was making, part of this grant is demonstrating, the grant proposal is demonstrating that you have these private funds available now for working on your project. And the private funds have to be spent first. So I'm going to go to my next slide just to see if nope, okay, it's later. So for this round, you have to be able to spend your private dollars that you're putting up by June 30th, 2021, and request the state funds. Now, so you have to be pretty ready to go with how you're going to spend that first half of that grant, those private dollars. And I'll talk more about this as we go further. This is a shorter timeline because of coronavirus and the pandemic and all the grants that we did in the fall. This grant is not being posted until now. And so that's why the shorter timeline. Typically we would post it right after the beginning of the fiscal year. So like in July or August, and then there would be more time. So granted, you know, if you had a grant before or you had applied before and you thought it was longer, it was, but this is the way this one's going to be done. And with fingers crossed, hopeful that the legislature would hopefully pass funding again, then we could post another grant opportunity after the fiscal year. I'm hopeful of that, but of course we have no guarantee. But so I want to make sure that people understand that the private funds have to be spent by June 30th, 2021, so you can draw down the state part of that grant. What are eligible expenses for this Employer Innovation Fund? So when you're asking for the grant dollars, things that you can use those state grant dollars to pay for are tuition for for-credit and non-credit credential attainment, training programs, that type of thing. So remember, that's one of the things, the priorities we're supporting. The other thing is we are supporting and we want to support addressing barriers for individuals in Iowa who have more barriers than others to getting this type of education and training. So we really want to look at using dollars, private dollars, and these dollars to support childcare, why Iowans are getting training. This isn't childcare while they're working. It's childcare so that they can attend classes or training programs. And that's not a barrier. Transportation to education and training, books, equipment fees, uniforms, support stipends. Housing is not an approved expense, so I want to make sure that that's clear, but support stipends are. So if because sometimes you have participants who you're not exactly sure, you know, this one needs childcare, this one needs food, this one needs transportation. So those type of support expenses can be utilized for these grant dollars or requested. And then I just wanted to put in there the other innovative ideas and proposals. Because it's the Employer Innovation Fund. We're looking for, you know, what are the barriers in your area and how are you able to help people overcome those barriers? And definitely it was before, but now it is even more with COVID, the access to internet and virtual training and things like that, that can be barriers for folks. So you definitely can think about those things as well. Grant funds cannot be used for administrative expenses. Of operating the program or implementing the project. So I have some examples here. Office supplies would be considered an administrative expense. Marketing is considered an administrative expense. I can see the argument on both sides, but that's just the way it is. So I just want to get it out there so you know that that's not something that the grant dollars are going to be able to pay for. Personnel wages and benefits are administrative expenses. And so these type of things we can't fund with the grant dollars. David, do you want to add, do you have other examples or do you want to add anything right there?
Well, just we've had some requests for a comprehensive list where we can say, hey, these are administrative expenses, these are not. It'd be difficult to give a fully exhaustive list because we can't know all scenarios. But in general, the program funds need to go directly, not peripherally, to the benefit of those participants in the Employer Innovation Fund. The folks that are working on the actual credential leading to a high demand job. So the things that are peripheral to that, the things that are probably fully necessary to make it happen, but are not directly related to that programming, directly what the participant is participating in, those are administrative. So that's the theme. There's a few examples there, but you know, if you have specific examples, we'll need to see those and take a look at them for you.
Thank you. And then we'll pause in a minute to see if there's some questions about this, Molly, but I also want to put up what can be used to meet the match on the portion of the organization. So it's private and employer dollars. Like I said before, state and federal funds cannot be matched with this grant. In-kind funds with the Employer Innovation Fund cannot be used to request that match. It has to be dollars. And so I put this example, and David, maybe you can say a little bit more. What I was trying to say is, because you have somebody that already works at your office, and they're going to coordinate this project, you can't put that in as dollars for your match. That would be more of an in-kind type of thing, and because you're already paying them. This is just as kind of David said, this is new dollars to support the participants and the work that needs to be done directly for them. So David, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, I can just speak to, the intent of the statute is to be able to, and the intent of the Employer Innovation Fund in general is to be able to direct new investment into these programs. So while, the in-kind situation, it's definitely helpful, and it's got to be going, helping with the implementation of the programming, it's not new investment. And therefore, when we're talking about directing those matching funds, it's not something that we can match because it's already in existence. It's already something that is being used for one organizational purpose or another. We're matching the new investment because that is the spirit of the law. That's what the Future Ready Iowa initiative is intended to do, is to bring those new opportunities or increase the credentials of Iowans and opportunities for Iowans. So specifically, the best way to put it is new investment is what we're trying to match.
Good, perfect. And then I did want to just highlight, this is in the application and the notice of funding and everything, but I know there's a lot of information there for folks. So I just wanted to highlight this too, that you do need to include the proof that you have those funds available as an attachment to your application. And so this kind of documents how you can do that. And highlighted there as I just wanted to say again, is applicants need to plan to expend all private funds first. It's not, the way this is designed is if you requested a $20,000 match and you were awarded a $20,000 match, you don't spend 10 of it and then ask IWD for 10, and then you spend 10 of yours and ask us for 10. You spend your 20 and then you get 20 from IWD to complete the project. So this kind of says what we need, that shows us that you have those funds ready to use for the purpose that you are telling us in your application. I'm looking at you, David, again. Anything you want to say to this? These are parts where you're so helpful.
Sure. Well, thank you. But I think this covers it. I mean, you can either give us documentation from your bank that would show the existence of the funds and show where they are and the status, or we're willing to rely on a signed sworn statement from a CPA. They're professionals. They're professionally regulated to give us truthful information, and so we will take an affidavit from them so long as it's signed and so sworn. We just need proof so that we can show that there are funds that are in existence and ready to be used, so that we know what we're matching, and we're not just committing dollars on the assumption that there's money there that we don't have documentation of. We need to be able to show the proof that there's funds already in existence that we're going to match. Perfect,
thank you. Awesome. So now just moving on to who are eligible applicants. And this really everything I take in is state from the notice, but I'll try and fill in, a little bit because we do get some questions. Employer consortiums, community organizations, and other entities that are in good standing with the state of Iowa. So I've gotten a lot of questions. Can schools apply? Schools can apply. Community organizations can apply. They certainly have in the past, and we've funded them. The bullet part here is what you need to pay attention to. If an employer is not the lead applicant, then you need to have a partner employer, and you have to demonstrate that through a letter of commitment from them as part of this application. So just to step back, because it is the Employer Innovation Fund, what we're really wanting to do is engage employers across the state and help support the efforts to get the training and education to be able to have the employees that they need. And in partnership is what we're really That's the ideal probably, to cultivate partnerships, because we have amazing community organizations and educational entities who are working with people all the time. And we have great employers who need employees. So what we really want to see is some of these organizations coming together so the employer can work with the organizations who are working with the people. They can a lot of times help us wrap around supports.
Well, about administrative costs, one question that we have about administrative costs is, can administrative funds be used as part of the match?
That's a good question. But I think, David, can you hear me? I think it's kind of like the piece that I tried to describe earlier, and you can probably make this more clear, that if you have an employee who's helping to coordinate this, you can't use that because you're already paying them to do that. So, but I do have a question, and we may have to get back. And this is like, what if the organization says, we're going to put up $10,000 to market this, and those are cash dollars? Is that something that can be used? Sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot, David. I just know this is something that comes up.
So if they're wanting to put up $10,000 to market the programming, and
Yeah.
then they want to know if that can be matched,
Yeah.
I would say that that's not directly program related. In other words, yes, it's helpful. I'm sure it helps to move the program forward and to get participants, but those dollars are not going directly toward the programming for those participants. So that would be an administrative expense.
Okay, and so the answer basically is no to that question, correct? That's what I think.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Others, Molly?
Yes, one moment. I just wanted to let everybody know we did get a question about the slides. The slides will be posted tomorrow on the website once the recording is posted as well. All right. So we did have a question. How far back can the raised private funds be? We have spent some of the private funds last year on our 3-year project. So how far back can the private funds be used?
David, I would say that it's cash you have that hasn't been spent yet. We can't match dollars that you've already spent. David, do you want to add to that?
Well, I'll just go back to that phrase that I believe we're all still connected when I use the phrase new investment. This is new investment. So we can't apply prior investments and accumulate those as something that would be a current grant application and then qualified for matching. It needs to be new investment. So I think when we're saying how far back can we go, I would say not at all.
Okay, next question. When will the funds from the state fund be issued?
I'll answer that in the presentation yet.
Oh, okay.
So are there any more like administrative expense questions just before David has to go?
Yeah, I see one, Molly. If it's okay, I'll ask it. I think this is in regards to administrative. If we hire a consultant to recruit learners, organize wraparound supports, etc., under contractual, are we fine? And Aniki, are you on? Is that related to administrative expenses? It's someone that I've been in communication with. So I don't know, David, if you think that, hiring a consultant to recruit learners, organize wraparound supports, I think they're wanting to know if that would count as administrative or if that would be okay as a direct program expense.
What I think I'm hearing is wages toward, the administrative setup of getting things going and getting participants and connecting people to the opportunities, which would definitely qualify as administrative. I mean, that while again necessary and probably helpful to the programming, that would not be a direct program cost.
Okay, any others before we just move on and then we'll finish questions at the end? And if you come up with others, it's okay because, we'll check with David and anybody else that we need to get the answers and we'll get them posted. So, keep asking the questions and we'll certainly get responses back even if we can't do them right away. So, David, before you have to leave, I just want to say thank you for joining us and for helping.
You bet. And just to make sure that everyone's aware, I mean, when we're looking at administrative expenses, the dollars for the Future Ready Iowa Employer Innovation Fund are intended to go toward those goals that the Future Ready Iowa initiative outlines as far as credentials and getting people beyond high school education or the equivalent. And so what we just want to do is make sure we're not putting you in a position where you're submitting things that we can't match, or that you're utilizing funds, in an administrative way that are not going to go directly toward the programming. You can use funds, but they're not going to be matched. That's the issue there. So the key is to look toward the programming, look toward the goal of new investment, and realize that, any entity that is participating is probably going to have some expenses of their own as far as the program they're putting together. That's part of the deal.
Right.
Beyond the fact that you're putting up funds to match, there's going to be administrative expenses, and that's just part of the picture of participating in anything like this. But that is intended to get us toward the goal of what Future Ready Iowa is all about. So if you have specific examples, always send them our way, and we'll be happy to take a look. Great,
thank you. Okay, so I want to go back to the slide that I have up now that we already talked about providing proof. So the way it would work is as soon as you have spent, if you're approved, as soon as you have spent your private employer/employer dollars, that match that you used in the grant, then you send documentation to IWD that shows us that you spent that on the things that you proposed in your grant. And then finance process that and sends you a check. It doesn't take that long, usually once we receive the receipts, unless there's any problem with them, to get a check processed to you. And then that whole amount, so let's say it was again $20,000. So you send us, here's how we spent the $20,000. Finance processes a check back to you for $20,000, and then you can use that to finish the project. As it says here, all state matching funds must be utilized within 12 months of receipt. So that's why so as long as you spend your money by June 30th, then you request it, we send you a check, then you have until the following June 30th, those 12 months, to spend the rest of the money, the state match that was provided, and then there'll be reporting in there where you share what activities have happened and how many people have been trained and things like that. So that's a look at the timeline. Is this still coming up? Is my presentation, because it says I'm paused. Is this okay? Okay, I see. Okay, so some key points again that I just wanted to go. No, it's not.
No, sorry, Kathy, I didn't want to interrupt, but I think you might need to hit resume slideshow.
Resume share.
Yeah, or
slideshow.
didn't seem to do it.
Is this, can you see anything?
There we go. And I would go back to the slide you just covered. I was trying to kind of see if I wanted to make sure I didn't interrupt if it was just me, but hopefully everyone can see it now.
Okay, good. Yeah, thank you for that. So yeah, here are the things that I just talked about. Awardees, you must be able to draw down your state funds by June 30th. And so make that clear in your application, because if it looks like you're not going to be able to spend your funds, then that could result in lower points. All state matching funds must be utilized within 12 months of receipt. So once you receive your IWD match, then you have 12 months to finish that work and get that project done. So there we go. Now I'll just go on to some of those key points I just wanted to touch on. Some I have, some I haven't, but again, this is a matching grant. It's not a reimbursement. Priorities include increasing opportunities for Iowans to get education and training related to high demand jobs. Now in the application, it will ask you to kind of have a place for you to document why what you're proposing is related to high demand jobs. You do not have the occupation or training or the occupation it's related to does not have to be on the state list that is for the last dollar scholarship or for the grant or for anything else, but you do have to use your local or regional data to tell us why this is a high demand job in your area. We have to have some type of reasoning on your end as to why this qualifies as a high demand job, but it does not have to be on one of those lists. And then again, addressing barriers. We're really looking to say, what are those barriers? What are the barriers people are facing in your area, and how can this be used to support them getting education and training? Accelerating opportunities, I like to put that in there because that's really one of the fundamental things for Future Ready Iowa is how can we accelerate opportunities for people so it doesn't take as long to get the education and training needed to get them into great jobs. So innovative ideas around that we really like. So please be thinking about that. And then again, partnering, if you're not an employer, partnering with employers. And then just a few maybe kind of definitions here or examples. Short-term credentials talks about that. What can be used for barriers? We already kind of covered that, but I just wanted to hit that again. And high demand jobs application, you need to include why is this a high demand job? So now just to how do you apply? This is an electronic online application. You have to create your application through iowagrants.gov. And so the website is there for Iowa Grants, and it's pretty intuitive, but Allison will spend some time before we're done going through that with everybody. Also, we have a link to that on the Future Ready Iowa website, which is listed here as well. And you can link to iowagrants.gov, and you can also get all of the application information on that Future Ready Iowa website. So if you want to take a look at everything before you even go into iowagrants.gov, you can go there, and all of our appendixes are listed there on that website. And so again, I just can't say enough, you need to register to get into iowagrants.gov. If you have not done an application through this utility before, you have to register, and that will take it. You put some information, and it takes a little bit for you to get a login back. So please do not wait till the last minute to do this. If you think you're going to apply, then get into iowagrants.gov and at least register. If you don't do an application, nothing lost, but please don't wait till the last minute to do this. And then again, online application, we cannot accept applications that are just emailed to Allison or to me in paper form. Utilize the appendices that are provided for you. And so here's, like when I talked about the website that you can take a look at everything, here's the Future Ready Iowa Employer Innovation Fund website. And you can see we have a link to iowagrants.gov. We have the notice, which has everything in it. Appendix A has the grant specific application guidance. So it kind of takes you through every piece of the online application, just so you can see what type of information you need to provide. We have your frequently asked questions here. The scoring rubric, this here. So here's an example of what the grant guidance will say. Here's what you need to provide. Appendix A. Appendix C, as I was just talking about, is the scoring rubric. What it will tell you is the thing, like the things in each of those sections and how many points can be assigned to that when your application is scored. So this is a really important piece for you to use while you're going through the grant. And then Appendix D is available there, which I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Allison now, because this gives you your directions about how you get into iowagrants.gov. And Allison is really our point person with this online application and a resource to everybody. So Allison, just go ahead and take it from there.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. Good afternoon, everyone. So as Kathy mentioned, we do have Appendix D listed as a resource to you. It's going to walk you through with screenshots on how to register for iowagrants.gov. If you've not registered, this is just for you to create a username and login password to get into iowagrants.gov. With that, if you've already created an account previously and you don't remember, there are forgot username, forgot password options, and you would just need to click on that returning user sign in here. I can also be a resource if you're having any technical difficulties with Iowa Grants. I encourage you to email or call me to let me know, and I can always try and schedule a time to walk through it with you over the phone. So that's something that you would want to do definitely at least 24 hours prior to the deadline of the grant being due, which this one is due February 12th. That's a Friday. So you would want to make sure that you're registered at least 24 hours beforehand so that you have time to look at the forms in the system and make sure you don't have any questions on that. Okay, Kathy, I think you can go to the next slide. And then, are you, oh, okay, you got it.
I'm trying to move it, but it's not moving. There we go.
There we go. Okay. I just wanted to kind of show you, once you are logged into the system and have started an application, these are the steps for the Employer Innovation Fund application. This list is what you would click into to complete each form. They're essentially fillable forms online that you're going to complete. And then as you can see, you can preview your whole application prior to submitting. And then you would want to submit your application. So again, if you have any difficulties as you go through these forms or any questions, we are going to really encourage that you reach out to me for technical assistance on that. And you can go to the next slide, Kathy. Appendix D is our budget form. We really want to make sure that everyone sees this as a required attachment. This will be something that you will need to upload with your application. And this will kind of help guide to make sure that you're putting in where your matched private dollars are going to be, and then the funds that you're requesting for state dollars. So hopefully just know that if you are working through that Excel spreadsheet right now, I have formulas built to total up each section. If you add or remove lines, you might kind of be tweaking those formulas. So just be prepared to double check that your totals are correct before you submit.
And I want to, can I just add a couple things right here, Allison?
Sure.
So one thing that I want to make clear about this is it, let's say you're putting up for matching, let's say you're putting up $10,000 for tuition costs or whatever that's going to cost for X number of participants, and you're requesting a state match to pay for wraparound services, childcare, transportation. That is perfectly fine. What I think sometimes people think is that if I ask for 10,000 in tuition, then I have to ask for a 10,000 match in tuition, and it's not that one for one. It is dollar per dollar, but they don't have to match in those categories. I hope that's not confusing, but I just wanted to offer that. And then one other thing I wanted to say on this is you will notice, if you are familiar with this grant from last time, we have added a participant, a cost per participant. And that's just because, you know, we want to make sure that we are considering too return on investment for the state dollars. That doesn't mean if you have a higher cost per participant that you're less likely to get funded, because we want quality programming. But that is new to this and you'll see that in the grant application and on the budget. So I just wanted to mention that. Okay, go ahead, Allison.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And you can go to the next slide, Kathy. So really briefly, I just kind of wanted to touch that. Oh, and you know what? I didn't do the right screenshot for this one. I apologize. But when you are in Iowa Grants, there is a way to see, as we get questions coming in and as we're providing responses, I am posting those to the funding opportunity page. So this is what the top of the funding opportunity page, yeah, there we go. It looks like you do not have to be signed in to see the public posted question and answers. So if you're still trying to wrap your head around if you want to apply and you don't want to create a username and password just yet, you are able to see submitted questions and answers. I'm posting those as we get responses in. So if you've asked a question and I've not responded with a response, or it's not been posted here, we are working on a response and should have that to you here very soon. So that's just something I wanted to make everyone aware of. And then if you want to go to the next slide, Kathy, you can also ask a question in Iowa Grants. And there's some benefits to doing it this way instead of emailing me or trying to call me. The ask a question option will send an automatic email to both you and myself. And then when it's posted on Iowa Grants, an automatic response comes back to you. So selfishly, I'm saying this because it will help prevent, it will streamline the response to you from me, and just kind of ensure that I'm tracking all of those responses accordingly. But you are still welcome if you cannot figure out how to get to this screen. I wanted to just show everyone that this is while you are signed in to your application. That's when you can ask questions, or I'm sorry, while you're signed into Iowa Grants. So you do need to have a username and password in order to ask a question, and you need to be logged into Iowa Grants. So if you're not at that stage and you'd prefer to email me, my email and phone number are both listed with the funding opportunity, and we're really encouraging everyone contact me directly first. And then if the responses are needed from Kathy or David, I'm coordinating that component.
Perfect. Okay, I think we're then ready for questions, Molly. And we'll do it, like I said, we'll do our best to answer them. Molly's capturing them, so then we'll be able to post them also. There certainly may be questions we cannot answer that we'll have to go to another source. And then but we'll get that turned around as quickly as we possibly can, so.
Yes, thank you, Kathy. And one moment, just a reminder to Allison that the questions are on the document right now. So first question that we had, it's a question about the maximum grant application. Is the maximum based on the employer, the project, or the person hired?
You mean maximum application?
So how is the maximum determined? Is it by the employer, the project?
Oh, but whoever's doing the application, you request whatever you can match up to $50,000. That's the most the applicant can request. So that's determined by the applicant. And whoever's probably leading the project, it hopefully is a collaboration. So I think that has to be determined by the applying partners.
Okay, great. Next question. It is about the grant website where it talks about the project and award period. And it says that there is no set time period. The recipients must provide a detailed report by December 31st of each year. So to be clear, June 30th, 2021 is the deadline for private dollars to be spent, correct?
Correct.
All right.
But then a year from now, then is the deadline for the state match to be spent. But here's how it could happen is you could really within that year, you could pay tuition for that, but you might not have an applicant finish for another year because the program could be 12 months or something like that. So I know it's not hard and fast, and that's why the December 31st report is due, because there are so many variations of what can happen. You could, you could be paying for tuition for somebody for a 2-year program. Correct, as was stated, June 30th, 2021 for the private dollars to be spent. Then up to a year after that for the public, like the state match, to be spent. But that doesn't mean your project's complete necessarily, because if you just spend at the end of that period, then you may have people who even over this next 6 months or next 12 months are still finishing a program. So.
Okay, next question. When will the funds from the state fund be issued? Actually, I apologize. We covered that one already.
That's okay.
Let me see. Can you share some examples of what the money can be used for, such as the examples from past initiatives?
Sure,
something
and
like
you know what,
equipment.
actually, I think this is on the website, but I was gonna put this in as a link in the slides, but I don't know how we best do this, Molly, but can we just get a link on the, up with the other things on the website that are that link to our previous awardees? Because it's a little bit hard, I think it might be a little hard to find, it's at the bottom of the web page, I think. And so let's make that really apparent to folks. Because then you can look through, we have a summary of all of the previous Employer Innovation Fund awards and a brief summary of their project. And so that's really something that can be helpful to you. So we had, I think, I can't remember if it was 65 or 67 have been funded with the first grant. So examples, I can do a few brief examples. One was a large consortium project in Dubuque where the education and training tuition was paid for individuals who qualified, and the funds, the matching funds were used to pay for their childcare while they were taking the training, and then they would get placed in a job. So that was to address that barrier specifically of childcare to pay for. Also, some folks have paid for barriers of transportation has been some. One of the projects that was actually related to, but as you've seen in the FAQ, we cannot fund registered apprenticeship programs because there are other funding opportunities available for them, but we can fund barriers to people participating or getting that opportunity. One organization actually applied and was awarded and used funds to translate their education material into Spanish and then to hire or pay for the opportunity for their employees to get trained from Spanish to English, because in order to get into the apprenticeship program, they needed to be able to speak the basic English that was needed for that apprenticeship program. So that they addressed that barrier to their employees being able to get into the registered apprenticeship program. Let's see, there are a lot of different examples. Some are purchased simulators to be able to train, upskill individuals as technology trained changes so that they could upskill and certify individuals in the advanced technology that was needed. So sometimes it's just equipment. So yeah, we'll make that available. And if you can't find it or something, just feel free to reach out and we can send you a link. So.
Okay, thank you. Next question. One moment. So if applying as an employer, must those receiving training be full-time or part-time employees, or can they be contractors and or interns of the business?
I think they can be any and all. I think any of those would qualify. We're just looking for opportunities for individuals especially who have more barriers, and I think you'll see some demographics in there to get that education and training. So I think it could be any of those.
Okay, next question. If we are a community organization and there's no staff on hand to be an instructor, can we use the expense to hire an independent contractor as an instructor in a trades program, for example?
Yes.
All right. Is it part of an administrative expense, excuse me, to help participants find a job?
That's a good question. That's where we would encourage partnership, with organizations that have services to help people. I'd have to know more about that, honestly. So
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. So for the next question, so this is for paid employees. So we pay our employees for their time when participating in continuing education. Those wages are not able to be counted in these dollars. Is that correct? So just wages for employees cannot be covered by these grants.
Yeah, I would say correct.
Okay. And then we have an existing training program and want to expand it by adding English as a second language support. Will the grant cover this? And I think you mentioned in one of the examples.
Yeah, that would be an eligible because it's addressing a barrier.
Another question, can construction equipment be purchased through this grant if it's part of the program?
Yes.
Okay, so this one talks about funds that are ready to use, as well as possible commitments on other donations that they do not have yet. Can they still count them as dollars available? So can they count pending donations or commitments from other organizations, or does it have to be confirmed?
I've got that one, Kathy. That would have to be confirmed by, I believe David said earlier, there needs to be signed documentation from a CPA or, you know, I've seen it a few times, signed documentation from a bank saying these funds are available. So we do need you to have those private funds truly in hand. In this specific example, they talk about email commitments for other donations coming through. I do not think that would be an acceptable documentation of available funds, unfortunately.
Okay, next question. A company has an internship program and they are looking for an apprenticeship as well as positions for IT positions as well. Would this qualify? So an internship program as well as apprenticeships for IT positions.
Internship experiences are part of the I guess items listed that can be covered with these funds. So the establishment of a internship program, that type of thing could be part of it. Registered apprenticeships are not funded through this grant because there are other grant opportunities. And so certainly they can contact me if they want to find out and get hooked up with somebody who can help them with a registered apprenticeship and find out what funds are available to maybe get started or get reimbursed on startup expenses for a registered apprenticeship.
Okay. And the other one, how often is the grant offered? Is this typically once a year or more than once?
Okay. This is, well, it depends on a couple of things, but what I can share is it depends on funding, but from the legislature, because these are state dollars. So the legislature, this is the second time they funded this grant. So typically if they were to fund it every year, then we would offer it once a year. If it's offered more than once, it's because we didn't award all the funds. So the first year, we've only done this 1 year before, and we had 3 rounds because it was new and we were trying to get the word out to people, you know, about it. And so we did not, it took us 3 rounds to award the whole 1.2 million. The word is kind of traveling. And so if we have enough successful applications to award the full funds that are allocated this time, then this will be the only grant opportunity for the funding that the legislature approved last year. So, I know I can't give 100% answer, but my hope would be that the legislative session that's happening right now, that they again pass funds for the Employer Innovation Fund. I mean, I think that the great thing about it is we've had so much interest, we've been able to award all the dollars and we have great projects happening. So hopefully that says, yep, this is a worthwhile expenditure of state funds. So if they approve money again, then we will probably open another award, which will be in July, or I would say August at the latest. And that timeline would be a little longer because we wouldn't be shortened because of the pandemic. But then again, the only reason that we would have more than one in that 12-month period is if we didn't award all the dollars. So hopefully that answers that.
A question that we've been seeing quite a bit is when will the awardees be announced?
The 19th, the applications are due on the 12th, and we will work very hard to get all reviews done and have an award announcement on February 19th, 1 week later.
And the next one, as the program grows, can we reapply again next year for additional funding?
Yes. Yes, just if you've had an award before, that doesn't mean you can't apply again.
And then we got another question about wages. And I think we just need clarification that wages do not count, correct? Or do they have to count under administrative costs?
So it's kind of hard to answer that just because it depends on the situation a little bit. I have had wages typically are not going to count. Let's just err on that side. Now, internship wages have been used to an applicant who has said, I want to start an internship. And so I'm willing to hire 2 new interns for this period of time. So they get this experience and they're going to get certified in this, they're going to earn this credential while they're interning. And I'm paying them this for their internship. That has, as presented as new dollars, that has been used as something that can match. Because as David said, it's new investment. This company has not done this and they want to start an internship. So that type of thing has been utilized as a match before. I think what I would prefer to do on, the thing is, I think I would prefer to get clarification from David on, and if this is going back to the question of we pay the organization, the employer who pays their employees for the time when they're getting educated. If that's something that's already in place, then I don't know that that counts as new investment. And I think that's where the question is coming in, because so I think we can address that online and again, and we can figure out whoever that question was to, but I feel like I need to get a more of a clarification because as David said, we can't anticipate every situation. So it's not easy to have a complete list of what is and what is not, but my best thing I can say right now is that I need to check with him.
Okay. One moment. I think that is mostly all of the questions that we have that we documented and we went through as well. Oh, there's another question we might have missed earlier. I currently have one of my employees involved in an apprenticeship program. Are we allowed to apply for this grant? So say if it's a program that's already in progress.
I think the key there is to remember that the Innovation Fund cannot be used to fund registered apprenticeships. So if it's not a DOL registered apprenticeship, because sometimes there's some confusion around that may need clarification, but for Department of Labor approved registered apprenticeships, employer innovation funds cannot be used for that unless it is to address a barrier. And again, I think it would depend on the proposal and the situation for that, but it can't be used in any like general funding of wages or tools or equipment for that registered apprenticeship because other dollars are available. Okay, and I guess it's 1 o'clock. So yeah, I can't hear you, Allison, you're on mute.
If there's any other questions that did not get a response today, be looking for those to be public.
You're on mute again.
Sorry, I'm not sure why that keeps switching.
Okay.
Publicly posted on iowagrants.gov. So those question and responses, you will be able to find those. Again, feel free to contact me if you have questions. I'll make sure that those get posted as well.
Yep, exactly. So continued communication. Let us know how we can help. We really appreciate everything that you're trying to do. And just thanks so much for taking the time.